There are 6 types of shelf-stable foods you should buy before August 15, 2026. Not because they're certain to disappear, but because your pantry can be full and still not be ready. Too many carbs. Protein that depends on the freezer. Too many foods that still require water, electricity, and cooking time. Some last a long time, but nobody wants to eat them. The problem isn't how many cans are in your pantry. The problem is how many meals they can create that your family wants and is able to prepare. The next 6 items fill 6 gaps, creating a system instead of a pile of disconnected foods. Number 3 costs only a few dollars, but affects hundreds of meals. And number 1 moves your main protein source out of a machine that needs electricity. 6. Canned tomatoes. The food that doesn't fill you up the most, but helps turn stored ingredients into a meal. On the first day without power, your family opens some chicken, adds beans, and eats it with white rice. Dinner is simple, but everyone finishes it. On the second day, almost the same meal is repeated. By the 3rd or 4th day, there's still food left, but the whole family starts losing interest. The child asks if there's anything different. The older adult eats more slowly. The person cooking looks at the rice, beans, and canned meat, but doesn't know how to combine them, so tonight's dinner feels different from yesterday's. When the menu gets too repetitive, people may eat less, even though the number of calories on the shelf hasn't changed. This is where canned tomatoes serve their own specific purpose, connecting separate ingredients into a dish with more color, moisture, and distinct flavor. Tomatoes aren't a primary source of calories, protein, or fat. They add mild acidity, help cut through the heaviness of canned meat, and make the earthy taste of beans more enjoyable. The natural glutamate in tomatoes also adds umami, giving food more depth without requiring a lot of seasoning. Rice and beans can fill you up, but when you add tomatoes, a little seasoning, and chicken if you have it, they can become a thick soup, rice with sauce, or a stew. The amount of food barely changes. What changes is how the ingredients work together. Diced tomatoes work well with beans, soups, and stews. The small pieces add texture, preventing everything from feeling soft and the same. Tomato sauce has a smooth texture that makes an easy base for pasta or soup. Tomato paste takes up little space. Just 1 or 2 tablespoons can add color and depth to an entire pot of food. Don't look only at the size of the can. Look at how many meals it can improve. A small can that works with rice, beans, and chicken may be more useful than a larger product that only works in a dish your family rarely makes. The supply behind that can is also worth paying attention to. Most of America's processing tomatoes are grown in California. That concentration makes production efficient, but it also leaves the supply sensitive to changes in planted acreage, temperatures, irrigation water, and contracting decisions between farmers and processing plants. According to the USDA's May 2026 report, California processors were expected to contract for about 9.9 million tons of tomatoes, roughly 11% below the final contracted production in 2025. Expected acreage was projected to fall to about 185,000 acres. This does not mean canned tomatoes are certain to become scarce. Final production, inventory, demand, and processors' decisions all affect supply. But the numbers show that shoppers should not assume supply, and prices will always remain the same as the year before. That is how the August 15 deadline should be understood. This is not a prediction that tomatoes will disappear after that date or that prices are certain to rise. It is a deadline for checking your pantry and choosing the right products, while there are still plenty of options in brands, sizes, ingredients, and prices. The goal is not to buy as much as possible, but to buy the types your family actually uses. When shopping, Read the ingredient list and sodium content, instead of looking only at the picture of the food on the front. Some products contain a lot of added salt, sugar, or seasoning. Less heavily seasoned options are usually more versatile because you can adjust them for different recipes. Tomatoes are high in acid, so they should be rotated more quickly than many low-acid canned foods. According to the USDA, this category generally maintains its best quality for about 12 to 18 months. That is a quality guideline, not the point when every can automatically becomes unsafe. Place cans with earlier dates in the front, use them in everyday meals, and replace them with new ones. Do not use cans that are swollen, leaking, heavily rusted, or deeply dented along the seams. If the power goes out and you cannot keep food cold, choose smaller packages and open only what you can finish in one meal. Transferring leftovers to another container will not make them last longer at room temperature. Under normal conditions, leftover tomato paste can be transferred to a clean container, divided into smaller portions, and frozen. Canned tomatoes do not make the shelf bigger. They make what is already on the shelf work better. But when cooking is not possible, and everyone is already exhausted, the family will need a source of energy that can be used immediately, without a stove or water. Number 5 is meant for that situation. 5. Peanut butter. A source of energy that requires nothing before it can help you. A power outage does not just stop the refrigerator from working. It also takes away most of the ways you normally turn ingredients into a meal. The electric stove does not work. Clean water has to be saved for drinking and taking medication. Someone who has just cleaned up after a storm, cared for a family member, or handled unexpected problems around the house may no longer have enough energy to cook and clean up. At that point, the value of food is not just in the nutrition it contains. It is also in the number of steps you have to get through before you can eat it. Peanut butter eliminates almost all of those steps. No thawing, no added water, no fuel. Just open the lid, take a reasonable amount, and use it immediately. This is why peanut butter often appears on lists of emergency foods that require no refrigeration or cooking. Its job is to provide concentrated energy when the body needs fuel, but the kitchen can barely function. Depending on the product, about 2 tablespoons of peanut butter usually provide approximately 190 calories, along with fat and some protein. A relatively small amount can therefore make a snack more substantial without requiring someone to eat too much. This matters because many emergency food supplies are built around rice, pasta, oats, and crackers. Those foods provide carbohydrates, but they may lack a convenient source of fat. Canned chicken adds protein, but is usually fairly lean. Peanut butter fills that gap with fat, helping increase energy density and maintain a feeling of fullness for longer. Based on the amount of energy in each serving, peanut butter often provides greater practical value than many individually packaged snacks. However, do not just count the number of jars. Look at the number of servings on the label, the number of people in the household, and how often it will be used. That calculation tells you how many times your supply can provide food, instead of simply creating a sense of security because the jar still looks full. Using it does not need to be complicated. You can spread a thin layer on bread or crackers, mix it into oatmeal when you are able to prepare it, or eat it with fruit your family already enjoys. This is an important rule. Only store products your family will actually accept. No matter how good a peanut butter's nutrition facts may be, it is not useful if no one wants to open it. Difficult days are not the time to discover that the entire family dislikes the flavor of a product you bought in large quantities. Peanut butter also works well in an evacuation bag because it takes up little space compared with the amount of energy it provides. Plastic jars are lightweight, and less likely to break than glass jars, while individual packets are easy to carry and portion out. For supplies kept at home, several small or medium jars are often more practical than one oversized jar. Do not choose a size just because the price per ounce is lower. Consider how many people will eat it and whether the product can be finished after opening. A large jar is no longer a bargain if its quality declines before the family can finish it. Choosing the right type is just as important. Do not assume that the word "natural" on the front of the package automatically means it is a better choice during a power outage. Natural peanut butter often has a layer of oil separated at the top. This can be normal and does not automatically mean the product has gone bad. However, storage instructions after opening vary by brand. Check the ingredient list, added sugar, sodium, and storage instructions. If the goal is to use it when the power is out, choose a product whose label allows it to be stored at room temperature after opening. For unopened jars, follow the quality date and the manufacturer's instructions. Keep the product in a cool, dry place away from sunlight and heat sources. Place older jars in the front. Use them first, and only then open a new jar. This rotation method helps refresh your supply naturally instead of leaving it untouched on the shelf until its quality declines. Peanut butter still has its own limitations. Its thick, sticky texture may be uncomfortable for some older adults or people who have difficulty swallowing. In that case, do not eat a large spoonful directly. Spread it in a thin layer or mix it into a suitable food. Most importantly, peanuts are a major allergen. If someone in your family has an allergy, do not buy peanut butter just because it appears on this list. Sunflower seed butter can be an alternative, but you still need to check the ingredients and cross-contact warnings. Families with someone who has a severe allergy should continue following that person's allergen avoidance plan. When using it, use clean, dry utensils. Do not use the product if it develops a clearly rancid smell, unusual color, or signs of mold. Peanut butter is not a complete, balanced meal, but when the power is out, clean water has to be prioritized for essential needs, and everyone is too tired to cook. Very few foods can provide a significant amount of energy with so little preparation. Peanut butter provides energy with almost no preparation, but it cannot turn a small amount of meat into dinner for the whole family. Number 4 solves the problem of budget and portions in a completely different way. 4. Canned beans. The food that helps 1 pound of meat feed more people. You're standing at the meat counter with 1 pound of ground beef in your hand. That's the amount your family usually buys for a pot of chili or a weekend dinner. But the price on the label makes you stop. You can put it in your cart, switch to a smaller package, or take it home and find a way to make every ounce of meat feed more people. In June 2026, beef and veal prices in the US were about 8% higher than a year earlier. For someone who regularly buys ground beef, that isn't just a number. It shows up in the moment when you have to decide whether to buy less, make something else, or cut back on another part of your cart. Canned beans are one of the most practical ways to solve that problem. Not by eliminating meat entirely, and not by forcing the family to eat a completely different dinner. Beans help a smaller amount of meat still do its job. Instead of making 1 pound of ground beef the entire base of a pot of chili, you can use the meat as the foundation and add kidney beans to increase the volume. The meat still appears in every bowl, but it no longer has to carry the entire dish. The chili still keeps its thickness, texture, and sense of being a complete meal. The same principle applies to many other dishes. White beans help a small amount of chicken make a larger pot of soup. Black beans combine with meat, rice, and tomatoes to increase the number of servings. Chickpeas can be added to curry or grains without requiring another source of animal protein. This is what makes beans different from the peanut butter in the previous section. Peanut butter provides energy with very little preparation. Canned beans solve the problem of the entire pot of food, increasing the volume of a meal without forcing the family to increase the amount of meat at the same rate. Many people will ask, if dried beans are cheaper, why not just store dried beans? Dried beans really do have many advantages. They cost less per serving, last a long time, and provide plant-based protein along with fiber. When a family has enough water, heat, and time, they are a very good choice. But the purchase price is only part of the cost. Dried beans need to be soaked, require additional water for cooking, need fuel, and require someone with enough energy to monitor the cooking process. On a normal day, that is just part of cooking. When water is limited, fuel has to be conserved, or the person who usually cooks is sick. Each of those requirements becomes a barrier. A bag of dried beans can fill a shelf and still not be a meal. Canned beans are already cooked and can be eaten directly if necessary. If you have a heat source, you can add them to soup or stew. If you do not, they are still an ingredient you can use without waiting for conditions to improve. That is why canned beans have a higher purchase price than dried beans, but sometimes have a lower cost of use under limited conditions. The difference does not just pay for the can. It also pays for the water, time, and fuel that were used before the product reached you. The two types of beans are not competing for the same place. Dried beans are suited for long-term storage when the family can cook. Canned beans are the backup layer for days when that ability is no longer certain. Which beans you choose should be based on your family's actual kitchen. Black beans work well with rice, tacos, and chili. Pinto beans are soft, versatile, and easy to mash. Kidney beans hold their texture well in soups and stews. Chickpeas work well in curries, salads, or grain dishes. You do not need to buy every type. A can may be on sale, but if it does not fit any dish your family knows how to make, it can still sit untouched on the shelf. The best choice is not the cheapest one. It is the one that can be used in real meals. When comparing products, do not look only at the total weight of the can. Check the number of servings, sodium content, and drained weight if it is listed on the label. A large can containing more liquid may not provide more servings of beans than a smaller can with more solid contents. If your family needs to manage sodium, prioritize reduced sodium products. When enough clean water is available, draining and rinsing the beans can reduce some of the sodium even further. But when water has to be reserved for drinking, do not waste it on a step that is not required. Choosing the right product from the beginning is more practical. The can size should also match the number of people eating. When refrigeration is unavailable, open only the amount your family can finish in one meal. Do not use cans that are swollen, leaking, heavily rusted, or deeply dented along the seams. Follow the quality date on the package. Place older cans in the front and use them first. Preparing properly does not mean buying a case of the cheapest beans. Choose 2 or 3 types your family already eats. Include them in your regular meals and replace them after use. Canned beans do not replace meat. They help 1 pound of meat go further, reduce the resources needed to complete a meal, and give your family more options when the budget gets tight. But for rice, beans, soups, and canned meat to work across many different meals, the family still needs one foundational ingredient that appears in almost every recipe. Number 3 costs only a few dollars, but it can affect hundreds of uses. 3-pot iodized salt. The cheapest item, but the one that affects the most meals. A container of iodized salt costs only a few dollars, takes up little space, and can be used in hundreds of meals. It is the cheapest item on this list. People check their rice, count their cans of meat, add more beans, and simply assume the container of salt beside the stove will never run out. It is too familiar to be considered part of a preparedness plan. But when the salt is gone, the effect immediately spreads across nearly the entire food shelf. This is salt's specific job. It does not create a new dish, but it helps almost every existing dish do its job better. Canned tomatoes give a recipe sauce, color, and character. Salt does quieter work. A small pinch can bring out the earthy flavor of beans, balance the acidity of tomatoes, complete a pot of soup, and help rice work better with the other foods. After several days of eating stored food, this small difference becomes important. A food supply may contain enough energy, but if every meal is bland and difficult to eat, the amount of food the family actually consumes may decrease. Salt does not solve all the monotony, but at a very low cost, it helps many basic foods remain easier to eat. The product's value also lies in the word iodized on the label. Iodine is an essential micronutrient the body needs to produce thyroid hormones. For families that eat little fish, seafood, or other iodine-rich foods, iodized salt is an accessible source of iodine in the daily diet. However, not every container of salt contains iodine. Sea salt, kosher salt, pink salt, and some specialty salts may not be fortified with this micronutrient. If the goal is to store a source of iodine, look for the word iodized on the package instead of guessing based on the name, color, or price. Iodized salt is still salt, so the benefit of iodine does not mean you should use more than the amount needed to season your food. People who need to control their sodium intake or follow a specific diet still need to follow the guidance of their doctor or healthcare professional. But that does not mean simply adding more salt will make food safe. Preservation methods require the correct type of salt, the correct ratio, and a tested recipe. Salt cannot save meat stored at the wrong temperature, fix food that has already spoiled, or make a swollen or leaking can safe. It also should not be mixed into a concentrated solution as a substitute for proper dehydration treatment guidance. One type of salt is not suitable for every task. Iodized salt is convenient for regular cooking, but some pickling or fermentation recipes require a specialized type. In those cases, follow a reliable recipe and do not change the type of salt or estimate the ratio yourself. When buying salt for storage, distinguish pure salt from seasoning blends. Garlic salt, herb salt, and pre-mixed seasonings may contain sugar, oil, or plant-based ingredients. They do not have the same stability as sodium chloride, so the storage properties of pure salt should not be applied to every product with the word salt on the label. Salt's biggest enemies are moisture and contamination. Divide your supply among several small, clean, dry, airtight containers. Store them in an elevated location away from the stove, dishwasher, damp basement, or areas exposed to steam. Do not place cardboard containers directly on a garage or storage room floor. Salt does not need oxygen absorbers because it does not turn rancid like foods containing fat. The most important thing is to keep it clean and dry. However, iodine content can decrease with prolonged exposure to heat, light, and moisture. Use older containers first and replace them according to the instructions. Before August 15th, you do not need to buy an entire case of salt. Check whether your family has the right type of iodized salt, whether the amount you currently have fits your storage plan, and whether the packaging is protected from moisture. Salt is not special because it is rare. It is special because it is almost invisible until it is no longer there. One small container can affect rice, beans, tomatoes, meat, soup, and nearly your entire food supply. But salt only improves the food you already have. It does not create the foundational energy needed to feed an entire family for several days. Number 2 is what turns a can of beans or a small portion of meat into more servings at a low cost and with an exceptionally long shelf life. 2. White rice, the low-cost calorie base that helps stretch everything served with it. Let's start with a simple calculation. 1 can of chicken may provide protein for a few small servings. If you put it on the table by itself, it will be gone very quickly. But when you mix that chicken into a pot of rice and add beans or tomatoes, you can create a meal that feeds more people. That is the specific value of white rice. It does not replace meat, fish, or beans. It spreads more expensive foods across more servings, so the family does not use up its entire protein supply in the first few meals. Canned beans can also stretch a small amount of meat, but the two foods do not serve the same purpose. Beans add volume, fiber, and plant-based protein to a dish. Rice provides the main carbohydrate base where meat, beans, soup, and sauce can be distributed evenly. A can of food becomes something served alongside it. Rice creates the foundation of the meal. For many families, rice also has a very practical advantage. It has a low cost per serving and it is easy to pair with many savory foods. Rice can be cooked soft for older adults, served with beans, covered with soup, or eaten with a small portion of chicken. It is not a complete food, but it creates the sense of a structured meal instead of a collection of cans opened separately. If the goal is long-term storage, white rice is usually more suitable than brown rice. The bran and germ left in brown rice contain more natural oils. These fats provide nutritional value, but they also make brown rice more likely to develop a rancid smell during extended storage, especially in warm conditions. Most of the bran and germ have been removed from white rice, making it more stable. That does not mean brown rice is a poor choice. If your family prefers brown rice and eats it regularly, keep storing it, but buy a reasonable amount and rotate it more quickly. The best food is still the kind your family knows how to cook and is willing to eat. However, a bag of dry rice does not mean ready-to-eat meals. Rice requires clean water, a heat source, a pot, fuel, and time. If the power goes out, the electric stove does not work, and clean water has to be prioritized for drinking or taking medication. The amount of rice on the shelf may exceed what the family can actually cook. So do not just ask how many pounds of rice you have. Ask how many meals your available water and fuel can turn that rice into. When planning, treat rice, water, and a safe heat source as one system. Only use cooking equipment according to the manufacturer's safety instructions. Never bring fuel-burning equipment designed for outdoor use inside the home. Dry rice can remain stable for a long time, but cooked rice cannot. Cooked rice may contain bacterial spores that survive the cooking process. If rice is left for too long at an unsafe temperature, bacteria can grow and produce toxins. Reheating does not always eliminate that risk. For that reason, do not rely on smell or appearance to judge rice that has been sitting out for a long time. If you cannot keep it safely hot or cold, cook only what can be eaten and discard any portion that has remained outside controlled conditions for too long. This rule is especially important for older adults, young children, and people with weakened health. For uncooked rice, the three main enemies are moisture, insects, and pests. Do not open your entire supply at once. Keep a small portion in a clean, airtight container for regular use. Divide the rest into reasonably sized bags or containers. Mark the purchase date and store them in a cool, dry place off the floor. Before August 15th, do not buy rice just because you see a large bag on sale. Consider the number of people, eating habits, clean water, fuel, and storage capacity. A smaller bag that is used regularly is more valuable than a very large bag sitting in the corner of a storage room that cannot be cooked or has absorbed moisture. Rice does more than provide calories. It keeps more expensive foods from being used up too quickly and helps distribute them across multiple organized meals. But rice only creates the base. Rice and salt still do not fill the protein gap the body needs. Number 1 addresses that exact gap, while also breaking through a false sense of security found in many kitchens. The belief that the meat in the freezer will always be available when the family needs it. 1. Canned chicken, a source of protein that isn't stored inside a machine that depends on electricity. Every time you open the freezer, you see ground beef, several packages of chicken breasts, pork, and sausage packed into every compartment. The first feeling is completely understandable. Your family has enough protein for weeks. So when you buy shelf-stable food, you prioritize rice, pasta, oats, and crackers. These foods are inexpensive, easy to stack, and last a long time. The pantry shelves keep getting fuller, but nearly all the protein is still stored in one place. A freezer is not an independent food supply. A freezer is a machine. It needs electricity to stay cold. When the power stops, the meat enters a countdown. The family has to limit how often the door is opened, monitor the temperature, and decide which foods to use first. If the outage continues, the protein supply that once provided peace of mind becomes pressure to deal with it quickly. This is why canned chicken takes the number 1 spot. It moves a familiar source of protein out of a system that depends on electricity and places it on a stable shelf. No thawing, no handling raw meat, no separate cutting board or lengthy cleanup process. The meat inside has already been cooked during production and can be used immediately after opening, as long as the can is intact and the product is used according to the directions on the label. That does not mean canned chicken always has to be eaten cold or by itself. If you can still prepare a meal, it can be mixed with rice, beans, and tomatoes, added to soup, or served with bread and crackers. Just 3 simple options are enough to help one product adapt to several different situations. This value does not appear only during disasters. Think about a normal evening when you get home late. The person who usually cooks is caring for a sick child, or no one has enough energy left to take out and prepare raw meat. The food may already be in the house, but there are still too many steps between the ingredients and dinner. So why choose chicken instead of canned sardines or salmon? Sardines and salmon have their own nutritional advantages, especially omega-3 fats, but they have distinctive smells, flavors, and textures that not every family will accept. Chicken is familiar, has a neutral flavor, and is easy to combine with rice, beans, soup, tomatoes, or bread. Different package sizes also allow families to choose the right amount for their needs. A product that appeals to more people will be rotated more regularly. Its value only exists if the family is willing to open the can and eat it. However, do not choose based only on the picture on the front or the size of the can. Read the label to see how many servings a can actually contains, how much protein each serving provides, and how much sodium it contains. A can that looks large may contain more broth than you expected. Net weight does not always accurately reflect the actual amount of meat. Package size also matters. When refrigeration is unavailable, a smaller can that is just enough for one meal is often more practical than a large can that leaves leftovers. Once opened, chicken is no longer as shelf-stable as an unopened can. Use it all immediately, or refrigerate it and follow the manufacturer's instructions for use. When organizing your food supply, inspect every can. Do not use cans that are swollen, leaking, heavily rusted, or severely dented along the seams. Place cans with earlier dates in the front and include canned chicken in your regular meals. Buy it, use it, and replace it. Check whether your family's protein supply depends entirely on the refrigerator and freezer. If the answer is yes, even a few cans that fit your family's tastes and size can fill an important gap. At this point, the entire system is complete. Rice provides the energy base. Beans add volume to meals. Tomatoes create sauce. Salt adjusts the foundation of flavor. Peanut butter provides energy when cooking is not possible. And canned chicken places a familiar protein source on the shelf, outside the freezer's dependence. A full freezer does not mean protein is guaranteed. It only means the protein supply is being kept safe by a machine that needs electricity. Being well prepared does not mean filling every empty space. It means recognizing your family's biggest point of dependence and adding a backup before that dependence becomes a problem. What matters is not buying more before August 15th, but checking which roll is missing from your pantry. Rice creates the foundation of a meal. Beans stretch the meat. Canned chicken provides protein outside the freezer. Tomatoes and salt make food easier to eat. Peanut butter provides energy when cooking is not possible. Tonight, open your pantry and ask yourself, how many safe, nutritious meals that your family will actually finish can the food you already have become? Of these 6 links, which one is your household missing? Share it in the comments, because your experience may help another family recognize what they have overlooked.